Hi, my name is Nova, and today I will be reviewing The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride, which was longlisted for the PEN/Faulkner in 2024. It is a literary historical novel, originally framed as a murder mystery, that takes place roughly in the 1930s, but definitively takes place in the town of Pottsville, following its most marginalized communities: the Jewish community, the African American community, the immigrant community, and to some extent the disabled community. The book, as I mentioned, is the first chapter starts to frame it as a murder mystery. However, that is not at all what the book becomes. It is a slice of life novel that could be considered an anthology with many main threads running through it. So my primary criticism of the novel comes from primarily the opening chapter, as it is framed as a murder mystery. However, right after the first chapter, you kind of forget that it's supposed to be a murder mystery at all. I forgot until the last chapter that it was a murder mystery, and I think the only critique of that is that it was maybe not marketed well, but the chapter is written originally as a murder mystery, and my main critique is that it starts us off on a confusing note for what is otherwise a very well planned out, very thoughtful, very thought-provoking, even slice of life novel. Despite a rocky start to the novel does go on to express what I feel are its main core themes extremely well. Like I said just a moment earlier, this author writes incredibly well. The themes that I see throughout it are community and connection, primarily the connections and community made between these marginalized groups in Pottsville. So something that makes the plot difficult to describe is that it feels like an anthology. And you get a different point of view for almost every chapter. The only recurring point of views that we have multiple chapters of are Shauna, Dodo, and probably a couple other characters, including the doctor, who is not a part of the marginalized groups and is actually a part of the rather impressive the rather oppressive regime, or rather establishment. The plot does primarily, though, center around two characters named Shauna and Dodo. Shauna is a disabled Jewish woman who inherits a store from her father and runs it primarily by herself, but kind of with her husband, who owns the only other two Jewish theaters in town, which is how we start our novel, though it doesn't feel very important in the end. However, the grocery store, the kosher Jewish grocery store that she runs, even though it does not bring them in any money, is more of a community center than it is anything else. The Heaven and Earth grocery store is what it is called, and that is what the novel is named for. In it, there is food, but she doesn't sell much. Instead, she gives it to the neighborhood. Neighborhood meetings are held there, but they are not held there for the council. It is not for the members of the white establishment. The meetings held at the Heaven and Earth grocery store are for the immigrants, the Jewish people, and all marginalized communities are there. The Heaven and Earth grocery store represents a place where these people can come and congregate. Early on in the novel, Shona is asked to give up the Heaven and Earth grocery store, and she never does. In fact, by her husband, who doesn't understand her need for this community. Instead, she doesn't, and that community grows and builds, and we see it not just extend from her store, it is almost everything to this town. And I hesitate to use the word crescendo because it is not where the story or plot ends, but one of the biggest incidents is when she almost dies in her store. When she's taken to the hospital and she does not regain consciousness. This is also where a child that her and her husband had taken in, who was deaf, is found and taken to the state. This rolls into what the story has been building up to, which is their buildup of community and their buildup around the Heaven and Earth grocery store that has now lost its owner, that has now in a way been taken down. They have not lost what the Heaven and Earth grocery store gave them. They are able to rally around, and they are able to successfully not fix everything. They acknowledge that they never are, but they are able to find and protect their people. And that is the connection and the community throughout the story. Thank you.